Hey everybody, welcome to this very special Zoom. I have a guest with us today to come in and talk to us about focus and some things that we can be doing to better focus the blocks of time that we set aside for ourselves. And some of you may recognize this handsome man. He's been in our community before helping us to manage cravings. And this is Dr. Mike Roussel. Hey Mike, I'm going to do a quick intro for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So his full bio, when you guys listen to interviews, people sit there and they read a bio that is located on their blog. If you are interested in that, you can go to his website, mikeroussel.com, R-O-U-S-E-L-L.
S-S-E-L-L.
S-S-E-L. Okay, 2 S's, 2 L's. And I'll make sure that all the links and websites we talk about will be below this video anyway. But we call him Dr. Mike because he does have a doctorate in nutrition from Penn State. So you can read all about his wonderful accomplishments, but we know him best for this and for being a part of our community in the past and providing some expert advice when it comes to nutrition and managing our cravings. But he's also a published author. His most recent book is MetaShred. Yes, getting a lot of pub for that, which is awesome. And he also he'll consult with top performers from a variety of different fields. He has a column in Men's Health, and yeah, you like my notes. And let me get through some official stuff where I can say that I've known Mike for years. My husband and I have known Mike for years. So we've actually worked with him in a variety of different ways, from him coming and presenting and doing speaking engagements with the different events that we've put on live in the past, collaboration of projects. And he's also a dad of 4, so he gets what it's like to juggle a busy life. And Mike, what are the ages of your 4 kiddos?
My oldest are twins who are 8. And then we just had last week, our 5-year-old turned 6. And then we have a 2.5-year-old.
Okay, so he gets it.
Yeah, we get it. Yes. And only one of them's home at the moment.
Okay, so we might.
They've been instructed to be quiet, so we'll see what happens. I work from home, so let's just say I take a lot of calls in my car.
There you go. You sound like my husband. Who's gone right now because we have no service on our cell phone at home. So hopefully that's now. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and jump into it. We're going to be talking about, like I said, focus is kind of like the big topic, but we're going to kind of break that down and also touch upon brain health, because I think a lot of us have it's kind of come up in a couple different ways. I'm going to share about how that first came to my attention, but when we know that we're improving the different aspects of our lives, it's important to have a scale of focus so we can get things done. Everybody we're busy, we're that badge busy, and we want to be able to get things done. And I know a lot of us are guilty of multitasking, so we feel like we're working all day long, but at the end of the day, we look and we're like, I can't tell you what got accomplished. Nothing got accomplished today. And in the past, we've talked about single tasking. So I brought Mike in today to help bring in some more information about focus and what we can do to help enhance that. And I've also brought up within the EJC, I started a blog about what I'm doing to help improve my focus and at the same time my brain health, and shared a little bit about that. So, Mike, where do you want to begin?
Wherever you want to start. I can tell you kind of how I got into the brain health space.
Perfect. Yes.
So my PhD is in, I studied cardiovascular disease nutrition, and then I kind of got involved and interested in nutrition through fitness. So, I've done so weight loss and fitness was kind of always a big focus. And then cardiovascular disease and kind of diabetes, like metabolic health, became a big focus of mine. And then just kind of with the clientele that I started working with some more professional athletes, more athletes, and then more executives. And, focus was a big issue for them, and kind of concentration and kind of moving along those lines. And that was an area that I just hadn't really spent a lot of time, looking into. And, and as I started looking at it, it became really interesting because so much of what we do with our nutrition impacts our brain health and function. And so much of the things that we do for exercise can impact our brain health and function. And so kind of almost in an ancillary fashion, people do things for their brains, but they don't necessarily pay attention to it. And we do actually a lot to not necessarily damage our brains, but we do a lot to impede function, optimal function. And I think one of the biggest things that I've And so two things. And then I had a conversation once with my cousin who he works for Charles Schwab. He's like kind of a regional manager for Charles Schwab. And he's older than I am, probably about 10 years. And he was like, I don't want to be playing catch up on my health when I'm in my late 50s. And that really, he said it to me a while ago and I've never forgot it, because that idea of we take our health for granted until it becomes a problem. And then we're like, wait a second, I need to try to, now I need to step this up. But oftentimes it's like, it's too late, and then you're trying to play catch up. Whereas kind of if we focus on a small amount of things kind of on a daily, weekly, monthly basis all along, then you're never in that position to catch up. Like, I think there are a lot of parallels between health and finances, kind of like the compound interest of savings. I believe that to be true in nutrition. And so that really got me kind of focused on, what can we do now for our brains? And then looking at, like, my parents are baby boomers. So they're in their, they're in their mid 60s, getting older, and they're starting to think about these things. And if one of the things that when you look at kind of research about aging and cognition, kind of brain health, it's always easiest to get effects with people who are older because they've already started to see those declines in their brain function. And so I was looking at this thinking, well, like, why is that? And how can we prevent that earlier? Those are kind of like my main questions. And so really what I found was kind of counter to what people generally do. And this is counter to what I do. So basically, if I want to get more stuff done, I just do more stuff, right? Like when I was like you just do more. You're like, I need to get this done, so I'm gonna work longer, and I'm gonna, like my to-do list is like 4 of these or something. But that's counter to like kind of how your brain works, and this idea of doing more. Like, I need an app to become more productive. I need to do, I need to plan these things a little bit better. And we're always trying to do more. But the part of your brain is like so powerful in itself, right? And we don't have a lot of, grasp on even the limits of it. But our lifestyles hinder our brains and hinder our brain function. And so this thing with aging and reduced brain function, what I kind of came to with my research was it has to do with something called oxidation, right? So it's basically, I like to think of it like this, like it's like smoke, right? And so you have all this smoke that increases in your brain. Like, imagine if you were in a smoky room, right? Running around faster in a smoky room doesn't allow you to see more clearly, right? You can't, if there's smoke in the room and you're running around, it doesn't work. Like, you have to get rid of the smoke. And so with a lot of people, especially, people who aren't in their 60s and 70s, they have smoke in their brain, this oxidative stress, and doing more stuff isn't going to clear that. Right? What we need to do is we need to clear the smoke. We need to clear that oxidative stress, and nutrition and lifestyle interventions are really good at doing that. And so it's kind of like you're taking the brakes off your brain instead of like thinking, I need to do more. I need to step on the gas. I need to keep going. You just say, well, wait a second, what's holding me back? Let's stop doing that. And then all of a sudden you have, access to, much better brain function, much better clarity. And so that's kind of the path that got me along kind of brain health and nutrition and how I've started to look at it, which is opposite, because I think we're always thinking of how can we do more, but we don't actually, we don't need to run around in a smoky room. We need to clear the smoke, so to speak.
I love the example that you gave of that. Yeah, it makes so much sense when you can have that visual. And we do default to multitasking. Can you say a little bit about why multitasking doesn't work, because that's not how our brain functions? Can you say that?
Yeah, so multitasking is interesting. So because you can technically only do one thing at once, right? You can do one thing at once. And if you think of multitasking, like as it came into like technology, like iPhones don't do it really even as well. But with with computers, you can have 2 windows open, right? And that's considered multitasking in technology. Well, with your brain, it's very hard to have quote unquote 2 windows open because you can only really focus on one in an effective way. And research shows that you can focus on about 3 or 4 things. Like you can hold 3 or 4 things consciously in your mind before you start to kind of lose focus on them, which makes sense. Like if I were to give you a number, a name, a color, and a street address, like it would be very hard to at the same time think of all those things at once. And when you're doing multitasking, what you're doing is you're just rapidly moving from one task to the next. So researchers actually call it task switching, because what you're doing is you're actually switching back and forth from tasks really fast. And the problem with that is it drives stress. So like the hormonal response to that is it increases stress hormones and it increases anxiety. And then it's very hard to get things done, when you're switching back and forth. And then so you kind of get behind on your task, which further drives anxiety. Like my wife, who stays home with our kids, always says, like, it's impossible for her to do anything that she's trying to do, because it's like she wants to send an email, but at the same time she's like, trying to make some food and also trying to appease two kids who are trying to kill each other, because that's what boys do. And it's this rapid task switching. And at the end of the day, she has kind of all this anxiety because her whole day is spent just trying to do, and all she wants to do is email their teacher. Right. And that's kind of the cycle that we get caught up in. And the problem too is as we get kind of more stressed or tired, which are kind of two defaults, I think, oftentimes for parents, that you have a decreased ability to then task switch and hold those ideas. So like another good metaphor that I love is this idea of actors on a stage. So if you think of your brain as a stage, and actors would be the ideas. So you could have about 3 actors on the stage because the stage is only so big. And then the more tired you are, right, the dimmer the lights on the stage become. So the harder it is to kind of see those actors or hold those ideas in the head. The more stressed you become, the smaller the stage gets. And so all these things that are kind of impacting our life make it harder for us to consciously hold these ideas. And so that's why moving away from multitasking is really important, because it drives a whole series of processes that are bad for your health. And then, one of the things that scientists, they call it working memory. So there are a couple different kinds of memory. And one of the things they call is working memory. And working memory is basically is your ability to hold a couple ideas in your head and also do things with them. So it's not really multitasking, but it's kind of like the best thing that you can do. It's the closest thing your brain can do to multitasking. And that is related, partly to nutrition and rest and kind of your overall, state of stress management is so kind of, it's again doing the opposite, because you think kind of the more frantic and the more kind of intense, at least for me, the more intense you are, the better you'll be able to do things. And with your brain, it always seems to be the opposite.
So one of the solutions one of the focus fixes, is to let go of the idea that we can do everything all at once, and
exactly.
Give ourselves permission to focus on one thing at a time, knowing that by the end of the day, being able to accomplish even just 2 things is better than 0 things and feeling exhausted and stressed and that overwhelm of thinking, I got to do this tomorrow.
Yep. It's totally right. And what's really interesting is that if you look at like highly productive people just define productivity differently. And I think that's one of the things, and I'm super guilty of this as well, is, you look at other people, right? Like the joke would be like, if you look at a president or a governor or, someone else, like they have the same amount of time as we do. And you're like, man, how are they doing all this stuff? Right. Or the CEO of a company, like they have the same 24 hours. Right. But in reality, like the comparison is no good because their support infrastructures are so different and those sorts of things, but they can define for them like what is productive. And so it's kind of like at the end of your day, if you feel productive, then you are productive. Like if you set 5 things to do and you get all those 5 things done, and then you feel good about it, that feeling and kind of that anti-stress response is a real physiological thing. Whereas if you set 50 things to do and you get 5 done, and then you feel like, kind of like upset or anxious or stressed about not accomplishing your list, like that stress response is real. And that impacts, your memory, that impacts what you're going to snack on that night, that impacts so many things. But it's just a perception, really, is getting 5 things done. Do you view that as an accomplishment, or do you view that as your day was a failure? And so one of the things I think about productivity is that it's important to set it for yourself. You define what's productive for you. And then that actually has like physiological ramifications on your body.
I love that. And that's something that we cover in the EJC, and something we talk about is journaling. And I call journaling like using a planner, using a date, your schedule or whatever. I call it journaling because we've taken the best, because we love the self-journal and the passion planner, but it's a matter of being able to identify, well, number one, you got to know what you got to get done during the day and what the priorities are.
Yep.
You might pick your brain about priorities. And then being able, that we're writing stuff down. So we're tracking as we go. So at the end of the day, we can look back, because I know that when Patrick asked me, so what'd you do today? I can't think of it off the top of my head. I can go to my journal though, pick it up and say, oh yeah, I did this, this, and this. So, but let me go back to priorities. Do you have any tips on how to best select priorities when it comes to our endless to-do lists?
So I'm really bad at this. It's like you. It's like sleep. It's like do as I say, not as I do. Because like for me, it's I don't know if anybody has read. There's a book called Essentialism, which is a phenomenal book, and it's like that's like my true aspiration and it's basically about like whittling down, saying no more, and so you're really focusing on the things that you want to do. And to be totally honest, like in my life, like I have that desire, but then I also have this desire to be very prolific, which means doing lots of stuff. And so it's kind of constantly the struggle between, narrowing this down so I can be happy with my definition of productivity, but then also being like prolific. And so for me, it's going to look like a black book. It's called the website, they changed it. It's called, I think, Ink Plus Volt. It's Ink Plus Volt. It was something a couple years ago on Kickstarter. And they have, and in it, it's a really cool planner. But I'll show you like at the beginning of the week. So there's like, the beginning of the week, you have like a goals for the week. And there are only 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are only 10 spots. So like you're limited. I limit myself to, this is a successful week. If I can only put 10 things. Except on this one, I cheated and I put an 11. But but like you can only put 10 things. And then it also forces you in that same weekly kind of plan. There's a little section for like reflect and celebrate. And then there's a thing to review, like your yearly goals, your monthly goal, and kind of what you did last week. And so that, for me, having a finite area of goals that I can set is really important. Like I had sent Pat the other day an article about a hospital. I think it was in Sweden. It was in Sweden or Finland, and they limited their nurses to 6-hour workdays, and so they could work 6 hours, 5 days a week, which is like literally half, right? Like what you would work in America as a nurse. And they found, kind of these incredible changes in work attendance, reduction in work error. They saw improvement, reduced sick days, like all these great things. And so I sent it to Pat, and he said, probably the best thing about that is just the parameters. Like if you say like, I only have 6 hours, then that's that's the time constraint you're going to work on. And so I think whenever I can put constraints on myself, I always find that to work the best, whether it's I can only set a goal of 10 things to do, or, I'm only going to work 6 hours. Like, so I work from home and I work in a semi-finished basement. I've worked from home for a while, and I know whenever my wife's like, how long are you going to work? And I'm like, oh, I have a lot to do. I'm going to work till 8. Like it always takes me till 8, like I could be, maybe if I would have said I'll be done at 4, like I probably could be done at 4. And I think there's just a really powerful way the brain does that. Like the other day I was working out, and there's this workout called Murph, where you do 300 bodyweight squats, 200 push-ups, and 100 chin-ups. And I was cranking along with the push-ups, and I was feeling fine. And then I got to like 298, and it was like all I could do to get the last 2 out, because it was like my brain knew there are only 2 left. And so I really think there's something powerful about constraints. And so how can we positively set constraints on ourselves to drive, better productivity in the allotted time? So we, in the end, leads to greater happiness.
I love that. So positively set the constraints to better drive our productivity.
There's like, what's the book? I think it's called, it's The Habit something. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on it. But the the person who wrote it, he's a doctor and a hypnotherapist, and he calls it the unschedule.
Ooh.
And so what you do with the unschedule is you have all these blocks of time, and you schedule in the things that you want to do. You schedule in exercise, you schedule in lunch with your spouse, you schedule in all those other things. And then what you're left with is an accurate view of how much time you have to work the rest of the day, right? And then you can only, like, well, it's Wednesday, I have to do, take my son to reading, I'm having lunch with my wife, and I have to work out. I only have 6 hours, right? And so it puts these positive constraints on your time and on your productivity. And then you're less apt to procrastinate because you only have a set amount of time.
I love that. It's like the flip or the backwards planner.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like a backwards way of kind of planning.
I love that. To procrastinate. Oh my goodness, right? I'm good at procrastinating. So if we're going to talk about focus fixers or increasing our productivity, one obviously big step you can take is to start taking control of your day. Start better managing your time, understanding what time you do have available, and being realistic about I love that, redefining what productivity is to you and setting those realistic goals that we can't do everything all in a day, but what can I get done today?
Yep. Yeah, that's really the key. And I think I was just having a conversation with my daughter, who's one of my oldest, my 8-year-olds, and she was practicing her recorder and talking about like she's on, whatever level, and her twin brother's on a higher level and somebody else on an even higher level. And she's like, well, Peter doesn't even practice. That's her twin brother. And I'm like, well, Grace, I'm like, we're all on different levels. We all have different skills, like if you want to move to a next level, we just have to put in the time to get you there. And we all get there at different levels. It doesn't, there's no plus or minus or good or bad to it just because Peter's playing the recorder at a different level than you. And it seems like a parent telling their child like a no kidding moment. But when I was saying it, I was thinking like, man, but as adults, we do this all the time, And so I think just kind of positive, realistic constraints and expectations go really far because the other area that I've been very interested in that's come out of nutrition is stress and stress management. And so much of the time and productivity and planning and procrastination just feeds into the stress scenario in your life in either a positive or a negative way. And I've become a big believer based on the research that I've read that stress is very relative, and a lot of stress that we have it is self-imposed at some level, kind of like with that, is getting 5 things done a win, or is getting 5 things done a failure? Like you could look at it either way. But if you look at it as a failure, you're going to have a much different physiological stress response that then manifests itself in real activity, like in real behaviors. And I think we just need to be careful about that.
Wow. That's really powerful. And it is. That's why we talk about mindset and the power of mindset. Nobody wants to work on their mindset. They're just like, tell me what workouts to do. Yes. And this comes afterwards, because I think that is movement is a great place to start, because once you develop that awareness of your body, you can take that same awareness and now take it to, what am I thinking and how can I change that? So can we talk a little bit about how sleep also plays a role in all of this?
Yeah. And so sleep, like in the book that I recently wrote, the Meta-Shred Diet book, there's a lifestyle section that's about sleep and stress management, and then kind of, living and changing your nutrition as your life progresses, kind of on the fly. That's my favorite chapter by far, because I think there are areas that people just don't pay attention to, like you said, like people want to know, what's the workout I want to do? Like, give me the meal plan. And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with the meal plan. Like there are a gazillion meal plans. And so, sleep is really interesting, because when you don't get enough sleep, like your life just doesn't work. I mean, that's that's kind of like, and one of the really interesting things is when you're sleep deprived, even acutely. So if we say acutely being like 1 or 2 days, you don't realize that your performance is decreased. So you have a decrease in performance and you have a decrease in mental function, but you don't realize that you do. So it's like, it's even worse, because like, it's like if you're doing bad and you're doing bad, at least you're doing bad. So then you can make an adjustment. But when you're not getting adequate sleep, you're doing worse and you think that you're doing amazing, right? So then you feel like you can continue on doing the same thing, whereas really you think you're here, but you're actually functioning down here. So that's kind of, I think that's the like kind of the scary dark side of not getting quality and enough sleep, is that you don't know how bad it's hurting you. And there's really, we're not going into labs and testing mental function or testing physical performance. So we really have no way of quantifying it. But, research shows that we are, you're emotionally more overreactive. So you have emotional responses that are not correct, that are not correct based on the situation. You have correct is not the right term, but you know what I mean? Like, whatever your emotional response is not appropriate for situations that happens within like 7 days of sleep deprivation. And then kind of on the hormonal side, one night of lack of sleep and hormones that regulate metabolism and kind of fat loss, so like fat oxidation, those after just one night can change as much as 20 to 30% in the wrong direction. It's so like, so I have some of my like kind of the business people that I work with travel a lot. And one of the big things that changes with lack of sleep is insulin sensitivity. So basically your body's ability to use and process carbohydrates. And so I monitor these people very closely, and I'll change their carbohydrate intake based on their travel schedule and how they're changing time zones, because it can really have that much of a profound effect.
Wow. So, and I know that we've talked about sleep in the past, but it's like like you said, life doesn't work. That's a great way to say it. You can't function with a lack of sleep. And just kind of like a side note is that we get that new moms are not going to have adequate sleep, but that's the season of the life that you're in. And it's important to recognize that you've got to get yourself into a good sleep routine, good sleep hygiene. Do you have any tips for good sleep hygiene?
Well, I think that but what you said, I think is a really good point. And my wife and I talk about this a bunch. So with, our youngest Joseph is 2 and Peter and Grace are 8. So we kind of have this 2 to 8 span. So we're closing in on a decade of poor sleep, right? And now that Joseph's getting 2, like it's becoming, his end of sleep is becoming more normal, but we have developed such bad sleep habits that even when he sleeps well, and I was just blessed with the ability to fall asleep at any moment, at any time. So I don't have this as much, but like my wife, Emily is working now. We're trying to like work back and say like, how do we recreate good sleep habits so that she can sleep through the night and feel rested? And that's a real problem, especially coming out of parenting, because you get used to just, crushing it on no sleep. Mm-hmm. But then you forget what it's like to be able to lay down, get a good 8 hours, through the night. And so that's a real thing that I think people don't really appreciate as much. But so when it comes to sleep hygiene, there's a variety of things that work really well. One thing that just, if you're having trouble sleeping, is don't try to like stick it out in your bed. Like if you've been laying there for half an hour, it's better to get up and do something else and then come back. So sleep is a passive process. You can't force yourself to sleep. And the more you force yourself to sleep, the more it is not a passive process. And so you're not able to achieve that. To get good deep sleep, which is like the physically restorative sleep that you get kind of at the latter end of your sleep cycle, a cooler room is what you want. So a room that's like 68 degrees or below, which I've noticed for some people it works and it doesn't work, because sometimes that's too cold for someone to even fall asleep. But sleeping in a cooler room is going to allow you to get better, deep, restorative sleep. I think you need to be, and this is again kind of more of a do as I say, not as I do, but we need to be sensitive to the blue light which comes out of our technological devices. So, laptops or phones or televisions or even LED lights. One of the things that we've recently done, we were kind of making this switch to, throughout our whole house to energy efficient bulbs, right? Which a lot of those are LED lights. And LED lights emit significantly more of this blue light. And what the blue light does is it's just a specific wavelength that when it enters your eyes, it goes and it negatively impacts your body's ability to regulate circadian rhythms. So kind of your body's natural sleep-wake, sunrise, sunset cycle. And, like there are like Apple has like a night shift, which tries to filter out the blue light. You can set that. So as the sun goes down, you'll notice your screen gets dimmer on your phone, can get dimmer and more reddish. There's an app called Flux, which you can use on your computer. So those are things that you can do, but kind of getting away from that blue light as much as possible, I think is important. One of the products that I've recently developed called Cerevan, the memory supplement, what's really interesting about that product is most things that improve your memory, right, are stimulants. Like if you think of the biggest example would be like a ADHD medicine, right? Like kind of an Adderall or Ritalin. And because that's just what people are familiar with. Like those are stimulants. And one of the reasons those work is people get like stimulated. And if you think like fight or flight, like you get, you kind of get tunnel vision focused. And so when the researchers were doing this, they did a 90-day study and they were thinking, well, if this improves attention and memory, like, is this going to negatively impact, someone's ability to go to sleep? Right? Because like most stimulants do, because it's the opposite of that process. And what they found was that it actually helped improve people's abilities to fall asleep. And I think part of that would kind of go back to that smoke idea, right? Smoke in the room. One of the things that Cerevan does is it fights oxidation in your brain. So it helps remove that, that smoke. And that seems to also help you fall asleep better. But one of the ingredients in Cerevan is it's a special form of antioxidant called lutein. So like green vegetables like spinach have lutein, eggs, the yolk has lutein. It's a beta carotene. So you think like orange and red vegetables and also dark green leafy vegetables. But what lutein does is it concentrates in your retina and then it actually filters out blue light. So it's like a protective layer on the inside of your eye that prevents the blue light from coming in. So it helps prevent that disruption that you normally get. Those are kind of like, I call them like side effects that we never talk about. Like with Cerevan, that it helps improve your ability to fall asleep, and it also helps filter out blue light. So the technology, which is so become part of our life, is less detrimental to our overall health and function.
Wow, that is awesome. I knew, for me personally, taking Cerevan for the past couple months, I've noticed such a big difference, but most recently was paying attention to also how it does impact sleep. And yeah. I think I'll insert at this point that I've mentioned in the past, over the past decade that I've been online, anytime that I've brought up supplements, I want to make it very, very clear that supplements are meant to help with the other lifestyle changes that you are implementing. There is no magic pill. So if you have trouble sleeping, you have to take a look at what is your sleep hygiene, what are other things that could be negatively impacting that, and then seeing what else can you do. So it's not just, I just make that so clear up front. There is no, I'm taking this to help fix something, but I'm not paying attention to fixing the other aspects of my life that are there that have a bigger impact. This is just an assist. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, I think that's totally true. I think that when we have an expectation for more than that, I think we end up disappointed. And unfortunately, supplement marketers sell a different story. I think like if you think like weight loss pills, I think weight loss pills are a great example. Like the best weight loss pill you'll find is maybe going to give you a pound a month extra with diet and exercise, right? So it's like you do everything you were going to do anyway, and then you can take this, and then you'll lose an extra pound. So then for me, like stuff like that, it's more of like it's $50 worth an extra pound a month, right? But if you did nothing and took the pill, you wouldn't get the results. So I think a lot of supplements fall into that category. And then I think that other supplements fall into things where you're meeting like an essential need, like think something like a vitamin D, right? Where you're just probably not getting enough in your diet and you're not going to get enough sunlight. And so you take vitamin D because that's going to supplement something where your lifestyle, even if you did it great, you just can't, fall short. Something like, something else that falls in that category would be like curcumin. So curcumin is an antioxidant extract from turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory. It works kind of in the same way as like ibuprofen, like it works on that same enzyme. And so it's this potent anti-inflammatory, but you could like never consume enough turmeric on a daily, on a daily basis to do that. So yeah, I think that supplements fall in two categories. One, they're going to enhance your current efforts, and then others, it's kind of concentrating the good of foods or nutrients, so you can get it in a way where you couldn't previously. But even with those, like if you just chose to be a joker and, ate poorly and didn't exercise and, kind of never took care of yourself, I mean, all the vitamin D in the world's not going to save you. So it's the top of the pyramid, not the bottom of the iceberg.
I love how you broke that down. It's an assist or, ability to enhance. And then we have essential needs that we humanly cannot possibly meet just being as pristine as possible with our nutrition and our lifestyle habits.
Yep.
So when we are making these changes and we are getting good things into place, I know that, should we transition to coffee?
Yeah, we can talk
about coffee. Right. Double fisting. There was a time when I did go caffeine free, and it was probably because I was trying to get pregnant with Alexander, and it was nice and freeing, but there is something comforting of being able to wake up in the morning and have your nice hot cup of coffee, and it gives you just, wakes you up, makes you more alert. And do you want to tell us about you can talk about coffee if you want, but more specifically how this came to be, NeuroCoffee.
Yeah. So I've obviously always been a big coffee fan. In college, I had a coffee pot that would start at a certain time in the morning, and that was my alarm clock was, like a nice pot of coffee. And so I've always been a coffee drinker, and I think the health benefits of coffee I've always been impressed with. I feel like coffee gets a bad rap when people are talking about coffee is bad for you. And I think where coffee gets bad for you is when you're drinking unicorn frappuccinos. Then coffee, right? Then coffee is bad for you. But if you're talking about drinking a cup of coffee with even some sugar or cream in it, coffee is the number one source of antioxidants in the American diet, right? And drinking coffee greatly reduces your future risk of diabetes. Coffee is just amazing. And so my wife is a speech language pathologist. And when we moved to State College, moved to Central Pennsylvania for me to go to Penn State, she had to switch from working in a school to working in nursing homes because that was just kind of the jobs that they had there. And one of the things that she noticed was no matter how old or kind of ill a person was, they always drank their cup of coffee. They literally would not they would not eat or drink or do any sort of other interaction. But if you put a cup of coffee in front of them, they would sit and drink it. And I always remember her coming home, she's thinking there's just something about the ritual of coffee that is very comforting. And she was like, if someone could find a way to put protein and essential nutrients into coffee, that would solve a lot of these malnutrition issues. And so that was always going in the back of my mind. And then when I graduated and started working with, with clients, one of the things I've noticed from a nutrition standpoint, it wasn't the concepts. It wasn't the idea of eating more protein, or it wasn't the idea of eating more fruits and vegetables. It was how do you then actually do those things in your life? How do you change your behavior so that you don't eat the candy and the donuts? I used to work a lot in New York, and in these financial offices, they have these long tables where everybody's sitting at computers, like the movie Wall Street. And then at the end, it was just junk, pizza, donuts that they would just stuff at the ends of all these rows. And I had a client took me to his office so he could show me, look at what they're doing to me. And so how do you break, how do you break that habit of what's there and easy to take the extra step to do the healthy thing that you want? And so, and what happens, what I've kind of found with people is that the more busy people got and the more stress that they got, that the nutritional changes were the first thing to go out the window. They were just they're picking work over nutrition every time because there was just too much, I called it friction. There was too much friction in that healthy lifestyle. And so since then I've tried to work, how do we create frictionless behavior change? So things that just kind of seamlessly go in your life that don't cause friction, because then you're more apt to do it. Right. And so that was kind of this new approach I took to nutrition and behavior change. And then I had met a gentleman named Chris through just kind of some mutual business friends. And we worked on a project together, and then we kind of, separated. He went and became the CEO of a company. And then he sold that company, and we kind of got back in touch, and he's like, I'd love to create something with you. What are you thinking? And I had talked with somebody who had made these nutritionally enhanced coffees, but they had enhanced them with it's just random antioxidants and green tea because they had these, buzzwords. And I was like, nobody forgets their coffee. Like I never forget my coffee. Like I forget to take my fish oil, but I never forget to take my coffee. You like to drink, 2 cups already a day. And so I was like, that is a frictionless behavior that if we were able to put something in coffee that was beneficial, that also tasted good, because people don't like it when you mess with their coffee. I was like, I think this would be a really easy way to help people, because you're not asking them to do anything more. You're just saying, just keep doing the thing that you're doing. So that's kind of how we came up with this idea of NeuroCoffee. And so I spent a fair amount of time mixing different things into coffee to try to find, I had like a bunch of targets, like, brain and memory and I had some like essential nutrient ones that was kind of more along that kind of line, like my wife and the elderly. And a lot of things just make coffee taste horrible. Is what it comes down to. Like you don't mess with people's coffee for good reason. And but I spoke at an event for supplement formulators and gave this talk basically about how they needed to create products that helped people, that had science behind them, that were dosed in the right way, that had enough, it didn't just say, it contains, curcumin, but it actually contains enough curcumin that would have a benefit to you, right? The gist of the talk was like, you need to treat your customers with more respect, like creating things that you would want. And so it was probably well received by half the room and then not by the other half. But afterwards, this company came up to me and they were like, love to tell you about the things that we're doing because we're really into the science. And what they did is they had this coffee comes from a fruit like a cherry. And usually the cherry is just thrown away. And they developed a process where in the coffee fields, they would take the cherries and dehydrate them and concentrate the antioxidants. And then they had run some different studies and they found that these concentrated antioxidants can actually increase a special protein in your body called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is the same protein when you exercise. It's this that also increases. And when people talk about the mental benefits of exercise, this is like one of the biggest ones. And so BDNF's job is to grow and fix neurons. And so as we get older, our body produces less of this, so we kind of have reduced ability to fix the neurons in our brains and grow new ones. Stress, sleep deprivation, those sorts of things decrease BDNF as well. And so I was like, well, this comes from the coffee fruit. I wonder if this would actually work in coffee. And and so it worked. We put it together. I put it together, tested it, and then we tried working with a bunch of different coffee roasters. Found some coffee that was really good, like this kind of small family operation in Texas. Are these people that we work with? It's like a husband and wife that started roasting coffee in their garage together, and they kind of built into this company. And so that's how we created NeuroCoffee. Was I found this great product, which is the antioxidants from the coffee fruit, that has a real clinical and beneficial effect on your brain health, and that it increases your body's ability to grow and fix neurons. Right. So it's really cool. And I always tell people, this doesn't mean it's not like exercise in a glass. I'm not saying you shouldn't exercise, but not everybody's exercising intensely 7 days a week, and that even if you do, this is just another kind of little kick that you can give yourself. And I liken it to, in protein research, as we get older, we lose lean body mass. And protein researchers who are really focused on this have come to the conclusion that if we would eat 30 grams of protein at each of our meals, instead of eating 7, 11, and then 50, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like people normally do, just redistribute the amount of protein we eat and do that every day, that would stop age-related muscle loss. And I look at NeuroCoffee as that. If you can, just kind of get this increase in BDNF in your body every day, that can help fight that slow decline, in neuronal function.
Wow, that's really powerful. I'm fighting the good fight for my brain. I didn't realize it.
You are fighting the good fight. And it's like you're drinking coffee. So you're like, well, yeah, I got to do it.
That's both worlds. I have to, because I know that we've got about 10 minutes, right? Are you good for about 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Let me just smell this. Because I know a couple questions came in, so I want to make sure that those questions got answered. And then, of course, if you guys have more questions after watching this, I'll have a discussion area. And I can always refer to Mike if there's something that we need to come up on. But I know that some questions came in about why does it only come in a pod?
Yeah.
You had a great explanation of why.
So like I'd said before, one of the things that I had told the supplement formulators is that they need to create products that like are dosed in a way that work. And so we went with the coffee pods because I wanted to make sure that every cup of coffee had the right amount of this coffee fruit antioxidant that you would get that effect. And so that was really the main reason why we did it. And then, spent a lot of time actually searching, because we've had like Keurigs since the first one. And, my wife, her big thing that she didn't like about the Keurigs and myself too, was the waste, because you had the plastic and the weight, and it was just so much. And that's kind of the big rub against them, is that the waste. And so these are actually recyclable. So you can, you cut the lid off and you dump your coffee grounds out because you can't recycle those. And then you can just recycle the pod. So we could compost the grounds and then recycle the pod. So it's a very low waste scenario.
Wow, that is so cool. I'm gonna hold this up, and I'll take pictures of this too. But it is like it's
a mesh. And what's kind of cool about it, like you were smelling it, is that when you open the bag, like you like smell the coffee. And I would say too, like our coffee roaster roasts it like every 2 to 4 weeks for us. So we order really small amounts and get them very frequently. So the coffee you get could have been roasted like 2 weeks ago. Whereas like with a traditional K-Cup, it's more like 2 years.
Oh my God, that's such a huge difference.
Yeah, like the lifespan on coffee is actually, it's like 1 to 2 years it can be sitting on the shelf. But we're actually working on so many people have asked about ground bag that we're just working on getting the packaging together for ground bag. And then the scientist in me is going to make sure that we have the special instructions so that you can, because everybody if you make a pot of coffee, if you ever go like on vacation with different people, like everybody makes coffee differently. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my one, like I'll go with the ground coffee as long as we can still be very, specific about how you make the coffee so that it's still dosed correctly. Cause that's the scientist in me.
I love that. The scientist in me. You need to have like a tank or a t-shirt that's
the scientist in me.
Make that a logo for something. I can totally see it.
Totally.
I know one of the questions that came in did come from a gal who is on Adderall or something similar. And she was wondering, like when it comes to Saravan, like, are you able to speak upon the difference, or because I understand that if she has been prescribed to take a medication by a doctor, this is something she needs to talk to her doctor about.
Yeah.
But just to kind of throw in maybe some additional information.
So I would say like comparing to medicine is like the one thing I'm not supposed to talk about. So because the FDA does not like that at all. But I would just say that they work via 2 different mechanisms. So like I mentioned before, we were talking about sleep, like Adderall is a stimulant and Saravan contains antioxidants, which, their main mechanism is they increase neurotransmitters. So the molecules in your body that help your brain work. So they increase neurotransmitters and then they reduce the oxidation, that excessive oxidation or kind of smoke in your brain. So they work via 2 different mechanisms, and that there are now 3 different groups. The ingredients in Saravan have been tested in older adults, in kind of 30 to 40 business professionals and college age students. And it all shows increases in memory and attention. Usually it takes about 2 hours. So after you take it about 2 hours later, then it really kicks in. So it's a very safe supplement that works very different from prescription attention products. So, I don't look at it as either or, because that's really a decision for your doctor, but it's safe and different.
Thank you for stating
that's a good, I think hopefully that's a useful, but also safe way for me to say it.
Well, yeah. And I think, and I've had side conversations with her about, is that really the route she needs to go? Are there other things that she could be doing that could help assist her and enhance her capacity without having to go on a medication? So this will definitely be something for her to consider and think about.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody who's on live, if you have a question, last chance to type that in, which I would assume you guys would have. I see that. Thanks for information on sleep. Because the other question that came in just kind of gave a scenario about how somebody, how one of the ladies was, Danny B actually asked about that there are sometimes when she just gets in the zone, and she gets less sleep, but we still need to be aware of that.
So what happens if you get less sleep and then the next day you feel like you're dialed in, that's basically your body's kind of the fight or flight response. So when you get less sleep, when your body releases, kind of stress hormones like cortisol or kind of hormones of epinephrine and adrenaline, like those types of things, those increase awareness, right? So if you don't get a lot of sleep, if you get 4 hours of sleep and you'll wake up and you might feel energized, right? And you might feel more focused because you have those stress hormones that are kind of coursing through your veins. Like I always remember when I got, it was actually right when we first had Peter and Grace, our twins, I got the shingles when I was in graduate school.
Oh my gosh.
And so the doctor gave me prednisone to deal with the itching. And he's like, this is how it's going to work. He's like, you're going to feel amazing for 2 days. And then you're going to feel absolutely horrible for 3 days. And then you'll be off the prednisone. And because basically what prednisone is it's cortisol. It's like the ultimate stress hormone in a big dose. So in a very short period of time, those stress hormones, you're focused, you get a lot of stuff done. I was like, great, because I was doing my comprehensive exams, which is like this big thing, that hurdle to get your PhD. And so, well, this is perfect. So I worked like a madman for 48 hours and then just crashed. So yeah, that's when you don't get a lot of sleep, that's what you get. You're getting the upside of stress hormones, but over a longer term, stress hormones are bad. Kind of in a chronic use.
In a chronic, yes. And some of us have been in chronic states of stress, and I mean the damage, immediate and long term, is just incredible.
Yeah. So. We're just not made, there's another great book it's called Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And the gist of that book is we're not built for chronic stress. Like we're built for acute, short-term stress, deal with it and then move on. But we're not built for long periods of stress.
Amen to that. All right. I see a question that says, would you see yourself functioning different if you were taking it then for whatever reason stopped? Like a backlash once you stop, similar to what you would feel when you stop taking metabolism supplements. And metabolism supplements are stimulants?
Yes. So Cerevan doesn't contain any stimulants. So you don't get that effect. And I think one of the things, because it works kind of with that, the smoke, clearing the smoke idea, is that, when you take Cerevan, in that 2 hour period, then you start to feel that increased focus. And then the longer you take it, the kind of the overall feelings of the improvements in short-term memory, the kind of mental clarity or improvements in working memory, those, kind of improve over time. And so if you stop taking it, it's kind of like your brain, you just stop removing that smoke from the room. You're not going to feel an immediate, there's no crash, kind of if you were taking a stimulant, because it's just not that. But you would just slowly start regressing back to, that previous state that you were working in before. So yeah, there's no crash.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I have to say about the short-term memory, for the longest time, my nickname has been Ladybug because I was always late. And my son Tyler's 15 would always give me a hard time about why can't you remember this? I just told you this. So for them to see these slight improvements in memory, it's like they're like, wow, Mom.
So they're like, I'm sorry, I can't remember everything. I'm remembering everything for you and your brother and your father.
Yes, and it's a process. I think that's the overall message too, is that it's a process. You guys have to take a step back and look at, okay, so if improvement is my goal, where do I want to begin? And what small steps can I begin to take? Because this isn't just something you just do for a short period of time. This is about the long haul. What are we doing to improve our overall life?
Yeah.
In every aspect of it.
Yep.
So I appreciate that you came in today and helped to provide the additional information in these areas, from focus to brain health to stress to sleep, and understanding that there are lifestyle habits that we can change. I love how you said frictionless. So ways to make it simpler on ourselves, because yes, we as moms, we always have full plates. We're always juggling. And then seeing how, that's why whenever I introduce something into my routine, supplement wise or habit wise, I test it out for a little bit before I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, look at this.
Yeah.
This is really something that I have found to come to embrace and rely upon, and now seeing the improvements in my own productivity and focus, and even in sleep, because there are times when I did have a problem with being able to get to sleep just because of life circumstances. But just knowing that I feel good at the end of the day, knowing I took the steps to take better care of myself.
Yeah.
And this just helps to enhance and assist, like you said, to help out in the process, because everything doesn't have to be this big struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you, Mike, for coming on today. We really appreciate it. And ladies who are here live, thank you for listening in. If you're watching this replay, make sure that you leave any questions below. Mike did set up some coupons. So if you guys want to try this out for yourselves, I'm going to be putting the coupons below the video that can help you save. One of them is going to help you save $10 on your first order of Ceravan.
Yep.
And then the second one is actually a bundle, because I've got, this is part of my daily.
You got the bundle.
Yeah, I got both of them. And the coupon for that actually saves you $10 a month off the actual bundle if you get both of them.
Yeah, so, every month, so kind of ongoing.
Every month. Okay, so ongoing, because the first one's just if you want to try it out, you're not sure. And then if you're like, yeah, I love it, then you know that you can get the bundle. And he was gracious enough to be able to set us up with that. He got us hooked up. So I'm going to put that information below this video as well. So thank you guys so much. Now you guys are going to have like a renewed awareness of taking better care of yourself and knowing the ultimate impact this is having in every area of your life. Mike, thank you again for coming on and sharing today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Your expertise is always appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you letting me be part of the community.
Well, they love you. I love you, so they must love you.